election. If an MP speaks like that about their constituents, should they still be sitting as an MP? And let me ask you this, why do so many MPs seem to hold their voters in contempt? And criminals in cuff led against their will onto a plane and out of the country. No, it's not a scene from Donald Trump's America, but here in Labour's Britain. What's driven this? A welcome desire to be tough on immigration? Or something else? Also, speaking of MPs, they look set to get a pay rise, which would take them up to nearly £94,000, plus, of course, expenses and generous pensions. Is this worth it or not? And farmers are back in town. Labour still holding out. Will they or should they relent? Keeping me company tonight. Very handy when it comes to discussing pay rises for MPs, because I've got not one but two of them. Rupert Lowe, Reform UK MP for Great Yarmouth, and Barry Gardner, Labour MP for Brent West. Before we get stuck in, let's cross live for your 6 o'clock news headlines.
Michelle, thank you. The top stories. Images of illegal migrants and foreign offenders being deported from the UK have just been released for the first time as the government confirms 19,000 foreign nationals have been removed from the country since Labour came to power. The unprecedented move is part of a drive by the new government to try to show it's taking tough action on those with no right to live or work in Britain. However, only a tiny fraction of the thousands of deportations include those who crossed the English Channel illegally on small boats. Home Secretary Yvette Cooper says rules need to be respected.
Well, we need to prevent these dangerous boat crossings in the first place. That's why we are today in Parliament debating new counter-terror style powers to go after the criminal gangs. And we also need to clear the ridiculous backlog that we inherited from the Conservatives, so that also small boat arrivals who have no right to be in the UK can also be returned as part of the increase in returns and enforcement that this Labour government has been setting out. We have to make sure rules are respected and enforced.
Elsewhere, farmers from across the country have descended in Westminster today in protest against the government's family farm tax. The rally, organised by Save British Farming, comes as a petition calling to keep current inheritance tax exemptions for working farms has reached almost 150,000 signatures. Labour has previously insisted it will not make a U-turn on its inheritance tax plans, saying that farmers are the backbone of Britain.
I've got a rural constituency and I've spoken to my farmers about the potential impact of this incredibly poorly thought through policy. But even if I didn't have a rural constituency, we all eat food, and this is the food production industry. If we undermine this sector, everybody suffers. And this is an incredibly poorly thought through, rushed, botched, ill-conceived policy which will damage our food security, damage our rural economy, put a whole load of businesses out of business. And the best thing that the Labour government could do is drop it completely right now.
Conservative MP James Cleverly there. Elsewhere, a second Labour MP has been suspended from the party for comments made in a WhatsApp group that saw a minister lose his job. Burnley MP Oliver Ryan's been suspended by Labour over his membership of the WhatsApp group containing offensive comments, the party said. Mr Ryan has apologised for unacceptable and deeply disappointing comments. Meanwhile, Ashley Dalton, Labour MP for West Lancashire, has been appointed as a minister in the Department of Health and Social Care after Andrew Gwynn was sacked over the weekend. He was also found to be a part of that WhatsApp group. A 50-year-old man who fatally stabbed his teenage daughter in the heart has been sentenced today. 50-year-old Simon Vickers stabbed his 14-year-old daughter Scarlett while he claimed they were play fighting in their kitchen. He's been jailed for life with a minimum term of 15 years after he was convicted of murder. Delivering the sentence today, Mr Justice Cotter said Vickers had never given a truthful explanation of what happened, saying the tragedy must have been down to Vickers losing his temper. And US President Donald Trump is set to impose 25% tariffs on all steel and aluminium imports into the US. Steelmakers in Asia have warned the tariffs will impact profitability and volumes of steel. It's unclear whether President Trump will make any exemptions on tariffs. Labour Minister Dame Angela Eagle said earlier this morning it's in the best interests of both the UK and the US that the two countries carry on with their balanced trade, she said. And those are the latest GB News headlines. For now, more news from me in an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you very much for that, Tatiana. My name's Michelle Dewberry. This is Dewbs & Co, and we're keeping you company until 7 o'clock tonight. Alongside me, I've got the two MPs, Rupert Lowe, Reform UK for Great Yarmouth, and Barry Gardner, Labour for Brent West. Good evening, gents, to both of you. Welcome back. You're very welcome tonight, as are each and every single one of you at home. What is in your mind tonight on this Monday, the start of another week? And I've got to say, it's been quite an eventful start. We have lots to discuss. You can join the conversation all the usual ways. Email me, gbviews@gbnews.com. Go to the website, gbnews.com/yoursay. Of course, you can tweet, X me, and you can take me with you if you need to go out, because, of course, we are on the radio. What a treat. There's no escaping us, and that is just the way we like it. Now, I remember being told that when we got this new government, it was going to be a massive clean-up operation. This lot were going to be completely different. Oh, that didn't last very long, did it? And the reason I'm sighing is because now we've had a second Labour MP suspended by the party. This is all to do with, long story short, a WhatsApp group called Trigger Me Timbers, essentially it was called. And some of the goings-on in this group, they were not that great. It ranged from, in some cases, saying F you to constituents that had the audacity to complain about bin collections, wishing some of these people dead. Cyclists complaining that perhaps he might be mowed down by a lorry. Responses coming, you know, basically, if only we would be that lucky. Sexist stuff, racist stuff, anti-Semitic stuff, you name it. Why would MPs, Barry, even be part of these kind of groups making these kind of comments?
Michelle, I have no idea. I think what people really hate is the idea that you present one face in public and in private you're a completely different person. Now, there's a role for privacy, right? Don't get me wrong. If you're discussing policy and you are wanting to debate the merits of a policy that you're thinking about and you disagree, there's a role for that debate to be had in private. Not when you're trading insults, not when you're dissing your colleagues or your constituents. And that is just about basic respect for other people. It doesn't matter whether they're your constituents, whether they're your political opponents. I mean, look, you know, Rupert and I, we disagree. But I hope I never say something that is disrespectful about him, and I hope he doesn't say anything disrespectful about me. We can disagree, and we can do it courteously.
There's a guy called Gerald Cooney. He's the former Labour leader of Tameside Council. He says that he flagged this group and the contents of it and the members of it and all the rest of it. He says he flagged concerns repeatedly, for example, over a year ago. Yeah. Why didn't Labour act then?
That's what I want to know. Because apparently they put that up to the regional office 15 months ago, and it is totally unacceptable. I don't know whether that was passed on to Labour HQ or whether it was sat on at the regional office. But the investigation should not just be about those people who were in the group. It should be about the question should be about those people who actually knew what had taken place and failed to act.
So these guys, they obviously, to put it basically, they can't stand the electorate. If you're going to talk about them in that way, do you think they've got any business remaining as MPs?
Look, I haven't seen the full quotes, right? In fact, I'm advised that I don't want to see the full quotes. Somebody in my office has seen them and said, Barry, you don't want to know. Some of it's racist, it's horrible, and it's about colleagues. But, you know, we all get frustrated at times with our colleagues. We all get frustrated at times with our job. And sometimes we make off-the-cuff remarks. But it's not acceptable to make racist comments, to say that you wish somebody was dead. But
we know these
beyond...
guys have done that now.
Absolutely.
So the question then is,
Absolutely.
if that's what they've done, they've basically apologised for doing it. Have they got any business being in Parliament if they're wishing their constituents dead, laughing at them, mocking them, when people complain and say, I'm terrified, I'm a cyclist, I'm terrified, I'm going to get mowed down, responding to your mate saying, well, I hope you do. Do those people have any business being in Parliament?
I think that those people should look at their own situation and do the honourable thing.
So you think they should resign?
I think they should review the situation and do the honourable thing.
What's the honourable thing in your mind?
I don't think that people who behave like that in a disrespectful way, who make racist comments, should actually be members of Parliament.
So you think they should resign?
Well,
but why do you find that difficult? Do you think they should resign or not?
Yes, I do.
Good. I think
if I cut it short, yes, I do.
I think you should resign. I think you should get out.
But can I say, Michelle, it's not my place to make that judgment. It's for them to do what is honourable, and it's for the party to determine that they should not be in the Labour Party or Labour MPs. And that process is still underway.
Could we see some by-elections then? I think the people that will be licking their lips, if there were, is the Reform UK. What do you make to all this?
Well, I think this is a matter for the Labour Party, Michelle. When you ride to power on the sort of preachings of sort of probity, honesty and reforming the way in which Parliament operates, and then you see grubby little WhatsApp groups like this happening, you do ask yourself, why would they do that? And I think a lot of people get their lead from their leader. And I personally think Keir Starmer is extremely duplicitous. I think this is a duplicitous way to lead your life. And for me, Labour have got to deal with it in the way they decide to deal with it. And if you follow through from what they said before the election, they really should take some quite radical action. But that's a matter for them.
What do you determine to be radical action?
Well, I think, as Barry says, they've got to have an internal investigation. There are clearly other people on this WhatsApp group. I don't know the facts, but if some of this stuff is true, then it's pretty damning towards their constituents. Yeah. But in answer to your question on by-elections, I've had a look. It would be a juicy by-election in Mr. Gwynne's seat. So I think it would be for us manna from heaven if he were to resign, or any of the others were to resign. It's a perfect time for us to be fighting by-elections. So arguably an own goal by the Labour Party, but I think it's a matter for them.
Can I just say, though, Rupert, it appears that the moment that Number 10 did become aware of it, action was taken swiftly. That I welcome. Why it waited 15 months to get that information through to them, that's...
Yeah, I was going to say, there's many people that would reject that and say that they have been flagging this for a very long time, as we discussed. Do you think the police should be involved in this? Because now they are. They've said that they've logged some of this stuff as non-crime hate incidents. Well,
if they've, as I say, I would have to see the full text, but if the police have seen the full text and said it's a non-crime hate incident, then no.
Do you think it's a good use of police time?
Not really, Michelle. I think there are things that the police should be concerned with, and this is not necessarily, in my view, one of them. I think this is a matter for the Labour Party. I think, sadly, it's an extremely bad reflection on Parliament again. And it seems to happen repeatedly. So if you're an elected MP, you've got to be able to tolerate the trials and tribulations of your constituents doing things that may irritate you. But often they're doing it for their own very important reasons. And I think the MP's job is to look at all those. If they think there's merit in stimulating debate about it, that's what we should do. But I think this is a matter for the Labour Party. I don't want to prejudge something I don't know the facts about, but it certainly, on the face of it, appears pretty vile.
Well, ultimately, it'll be a matter for you guys, the constituents, and that's how it works, isn't it? To force a by-election, you have to have a recall petition.
Well, you don't have to if somebody stands down.
So what do you think? Are you in one of these seats that are affected by this? And when you hear about MPs, you pay their wages, by the way, and they're talking about you like this, wishing that you will die before the next election, swearing about you, mocking you, sexist language, racist language.
Can I just say, Michelle, if it was reform, they'd be all over us like a cheap suit. You know, they would be claiming that this was a typical reform behaviour. So, again, dual standards, I think, probably here.
Well, I found it interesting, actually, that you're not being that way. So you're basically saying this is a matter for them. I don't want to kind of take the moral high ground. Is that because you have said some dodgy things on WhatsApp yourself? And
Well, hopefully not, Michelle. I try not to. I think, you know, I'm not in Parliament to say dodgy things on WhatsApp. I'm in Parliament to change the way in which we're governed, which I think is deeply worrying for me and clearly from the polls, a lot of people in Britain who are beginning to turn to a party which they hope is going to change the way in which we live our lives.
I've never been elected as an MP. The people of Hull had a lucky escape, not once but twice. But I feel like I should maybe set up some kind of online training course, how to be an MP, even basic 101. It's not difficult, surely. Do not go in WhatsApp groups slagging off your constituents. I mean, it is just absolute basics. Get in touch. Particularly want to hear from you if you are in one of these seats. What do you think should happen? Do you want a by-election? Or are you like Brenda from Bristol? Do you remember her? And you sit there going, not another one. Get in touch and let me know. We'll speak about MPs after the break. £94,000 plus expenses and pensions. That's what they could be set to earn. Is that enough? Too much? Too little? You tell me.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Lately, it's getting much better. The people getting more educated in terms of overall well-being of the skin health rather than temporary aesthetic treatments. Because most of the treatments in aesthetic, it doesn't change the texture of the skin. It just gives like volumetric result or remove the wrinkles temporarily.
So what are the most popular treatments that people are after?
According to a statistic report, first is anti-wrinkle, then dermal filler, then energy-based device.
Yeah.
But lately, biostimulators also became very popular. And
what do you mean by biostimulators?
Biostimulator, any substance that can change the texture of the skin, or like it will lead to postpone the aging process or proliferate more collagen, increase the elasticity of the skin, such as polynucleotide or exosome or different vitamins and minerals in a form of mesotherapy considered as a biostimulator.
Turkey's a particularly popular destination because the costs are so much lower. There have also been a lot of horror stories about what can happen when things go wrong, even people dying from post-surgery complications. What would you advise people?
Choose as a practitioner or surgeon very carefully and never prioritize price over quality. This is your face after all, your body after all. And mistakes can be reversible. It can be irreversible, and sometimes it's not like a booking restaurant or hotel. It's a sensitive matter that can affect their confidence and skin and body for life. So they need to choose very wisely. They need to search what kind of methodology that particular surgeon, they perform the treatments. Are they using any safety tools?
GB News, the People's Channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. Maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Hello there, Michelle Dewberry, Dewbs and Curtle 7, Rupert Lowe, Barry Gardner, both of them MPs remain alongside me. There's not a lot of love or appreciation for the behaviours of those two MPs that I referenced at the start that have been suspended from the Labour Party. Stephen says, Michelle, these people, it's simple. They have no place in politics at all. They should absolutely be resigning, and I'm surprised they haven't already. I've got to say, so many of you are literally echoing that opinion. Adrian says you've got to have more codes of conduct about how people, MPs, behave on social media, and that should be expanded to WhatsApp. I don't mean to be rude, Adrian. I'm not sure you need a code of conduct to tell an MP, don't go in a WhatsApp group and slag off your voters. I mean, if you do need that to be written down in a code of conduct, you probably shouldn't be in public office, I would suggest. But anyway, keep your thoughts on that one. So talking about MPs then, how much do you think they should be paid? How much do you get paid? Do you sit there and go, I could do a better job than these MPs? Do you think, actually, what are we doing only paying them this amount of money? We should be paying them a whole lot more. Where are you on MP pay? The reason I ask now is because basically the body, it's called IPSA, the Independent Parliamentary Standards Authority. They have looked at the MP's pay. They are responsible for suggesting what this should be. They have proposed a 2.8% pay rise. That would take an MP's salary to £93,904. £4, of course, including expenses and pensions as well. Where are you on this? 2.8%, of course, above the current rate of inflation. Is this a deserved rise? Too much? Too little?
Well, I think intellectually it's an interesting question, Michelle. It won't affect me because I give my salary to charities each month, so I don't take the MP's salary. I'm in politics to try and change things, not to earn a living. I'm fortunate I don't need to. But I think intellectually either the salary should be a lot higher or there should be zero. So I think either we should go back to the old method where people went into Parliament when they'd had experience of life and they were known in their local community and they made a contribution in Parliament. But I think the bigger question is, has the sovereignty of Parliament been undermined by Tony Blair and Gordon Brown's malign legislation and effectively which has taken away power from Parliament? And I think the answer to that is yes. I think the parliamentary staff are now arguably more powerful than the MPs. So I would like to see the sovereignty of Parliament returned under the 1689 Bill of Rights. Parliamentary sovereignty should be absolutely total. The King provides effectively the head of a titular head of state. Then you have Parliament, and then you have ultimately the Lords providing guidance in the background. But Parliament should be omnipotent. It's not anymore, thanks to the expenses scandal and thanks to a lot of this malign legislation. It's been undermined. So I think it's in the interest of the electorate to see that power return to Parliament. So that's aligned, I think, to what people get paid. And if you're going to attract really good people, you're not going to attract really good people earning £92,000, £3,000, £4,000 a year. So
you said zero or higher. So what would be your higher end?
I think it's got to be pushed up to a meaningful amount so you actually attract some proper people. I don't really have a figure in mind, but it's got to be a meaningful sum of money. I mean, £100,000 a year now means you're earning a relatively modest amount of money every month, given the inflation that the Bank of England let rip and that QE has effectively created.
Just a rough figure, what?
I think £250,000 a year, you actually want a proper salary to encourage proper people in. But I personally think the model worked very well when you didn't get paid at all, which...
£250,000, everyone. And, of course, your Prime Minister now, I think the Prime Minister earns about 160 grand, I think. So what would he be on then?
Well, more than that. He's not paid enough. A lot of civil servants earn more than the Prime Minister.
Indeed. Look at that argument about Sue Gray. Do you remember that one? Anyway, where are you on MP's pay?
Look, I think for most people in this country, £100,000, the figure that Rupert was talking about, that's out of their dreams. Most people in this country are earning about 35,000, 40,000 if they're lucky. Many people are earning a good deal less than that. Before I came into Parliament, I ran my own business in the city, and what I gave up. Basically, I was earning less than half by coming into Parliament. I'm still not earning as much as I was when I ran my own company. Now, Rupert obviously has his own independent means, but I think it's wrong that we should think that only the people that Rupert calls proper people are the people who are the rich and the wealthy, who can afford to be politicians in their spare time and not get paid for it. I want ordinary people who come from working class backgrounds, who've not earned a great deal. I want people, you know, to make a contribution, whether they come from being a social care worker, whether they come from being, you know, a plumber, whether they come from a clerk's job, when they're, you know, but I want people to come in because they desperately want to right something that they see as wrong and to change our society for the better. Now, I don't think that's the motivation that brings people into Parliament, I hope. I hope it's not that they're getting paid 94,000 or 100,000 or 200,000.
No, but Barry, as Abraham Lincoln said...
It's got to be that.
As Abraham Lincoln said, you don't make the poor richer by making the rich poorer, OK? And what my point is that everybody benefits if we get proper leadership of the country. And if you want proper leadership of the country, you have to start benchmarking parliamentary salaries against what people can earn in the private sector. Now, big corporates, people are earning multiples of what we're being paid in Parliament, or what you're being paid, because, as I say, I give it to charity every month. But at the end of the day, do I object to a 2.75% increase? Not really. Do I think there's a lot of people in Parliament who don't deserve £93,000 or £4,000 a year? Very definitely. Do I think the country could be better run? Very definitely. And if the country was run properly, there would be more wealth for everybody. So it is not a question of just looking at what people are earning at the moment. It's what they could be earning if we had proper leadership.
But you see,
and you're going to see that in America when they change the way in which regulation is hacked back, the state is hacked back, and the private sector is allowed to let rip. That's what we need.
My disagreement with you is that I think proper people, as you call them, are not simply the ones who are already earning a lot of money. Simple as that.
Successful people.
There's other things in life that constitute success rather than your salary at the end of the month.
Proper leadership, Barry, generates wealth.
What do you think? £94,000. Would you ever consider being an MP, and would the money be a barrier? Do you sit there and think, I don't know, I'm minted, this is all too much? On that, you might be at the other end of the scale. You might, I don't know, earn 30 grand a year, 25 grand a year, and actually you might look at that amount of money and go, actually, it feels out of my comfort zone, so I wouldn't go for it for that reason. Get in touch, tell me your thoughts after the break. Men in kind of cuffs led onto aeroplanes against their will to be taken out of the country, criminals. This is not Donald Trump's America. Oh no, it is the Labour Party's Britain. You won't believe some of the footage we've got to show you after the break. But what's motivating it? Tell me. I'll see you in 2.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
The weather in the Mediterranean this week is looking a bit mixed. We do have some showers lingering, particularly around the Adriatic at the moment, parts of Italy and France as well. Thunderstorms recently across Malta and Sicily should be clearing off a little bit. Generally, there's some brighter skies for parts of southern Spain, though we do have this rain band pushing into areas of Portugal as well. Once that system does clear, though, it's generally expected to turn a touch brighter for western areas, though still rather changeable further towards the east.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello, good evening. Here's your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. We're sticking with the cloudy and cold theme as we go through the next 24 hours or so, with some further rain, sleet and hill snow, particularly towards eastern parts. It's all because we have an easterly flow across the country due to an area of high pressure sitting over Scandinavia. We currently also have a system towards the southeast that's bringing some rain, sleet, even a bit of snow for a time being across southeastern parts, but that generally clears away, and then it's, yes, that easterly flow. So eastern areas most likely to see the damp weather. Some hill snow, particularly over the Pennines, the high ground of Scotland, quite likely. Temperatures dropping to low single figures for many places, the cloud cover stopping them falling too low, but where we get any clear skies towards the west, a touch of frost is quite likely. Looking at the details first thing tomorrow morning then, a grey start for many places towards the south, quite murky across parts of the southeast, East Anglia with a bit of rain here, heading further north, and it's always towards eastern areas where it's going to be damper, so some further outbreaks of rain, a bit more sleet, even some hill snow over any modest higher ground. Further west, a greater chance of a drier start, even some brightness, but with that, like I said, it could be a touch frosty as well. Sticking with the largely cloudy theme as we go through much of tomorrow, really. Still some outbreaks of rain, perhaps some sleet and hill snow across parts of eastern Scotland, eastern, northeastern England as well. Further west, a greater chance of some brightness developing, perhaps some sunshine breaking through, a little bit less than today for many places. Temperatures may be similar to today, really. A bit less of a breeze, though, towards the south, so perhaps feeling a bit less chilly. Looking ahead to Wednesday, we still have that easterly flow, so still some outbreaks of rain, sleet and hill snow towards eastern parts, perhaps fewer than through today and tomorrow. Potential for some rain affecting parts of Cornwall, and otherwise there may be perhaps a few more breaks in the clouds, so a bit more sunshine for some of us. But on the whole, staying pretty cloudy, and that's the theme through the end of the week, and it is going to stay chilly as well. Bye-bye.
The latest GB News travel.
Good evening, I'm Johnny Ratner. Several problems on the M1 tonight. Let's start up in West Yorkshire. The motorway is partly blocked northbound at junction 45 of the A63 east of Leeds at the scene of an accident, and a collision is blocking off the two inside lanes of 4 heading north, heading out of Buckinghamshire into Northamptonshire from Milton Keynes to Northampton. And further south, the middle lane is blocked northbound through Bedfordshire from junction 11 to 11A near Dunstable, where a lorry is broken down. On the M11 in Essex, the southbound exit is partly blocked at junction 8. The A120 Stansted exit where a lorry is broken down. In southeast London, Lewisham High Street, the A20, that's still closed for a police investigation that's been ongoing since mid-morning off Reynolds Street. And in Wiltshire at Swindon, the A361 Highworth Road, that's closed after a lorry struck the railway bridge near to the junction at Radtrap Island. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Hello there, Michelle Dewberry here on Dewbs & Co with you until 7 o'clock tonight. Alongside me, I've got the two MPs, Rupert Lowe, Reform UK for Great Yarmouth, and Barry Gardner, a Labour MP for Brent West. Just before the break, we were talking about the MP's salary going up to around about £94,000 potentially. Rupert Lowe suggesting actually you should look at it, increasing it perhaps to a figure of, and fair play, I did put him on the spot, but maybe about £250,000. So many of you getting in touch and saying, absolutely, they completely agree with you. That surprises me. I thought a lot of people would have got in touch saying that that was way too high. One of my viewers, though, he's got in touch and said he looked up the word smug in the dictionary and it said Rupert Lowe. That's what Andy said, because he said that you're boasting about giving your money away to charity. You're doing a good deed.
Trying.
Yeah, it's a good deed to be done. Would you give away your salary if you was that wealthy, or would you stack it all up for your kids? Get in touch, tell me your thoughts on that. But look, we've all been talking for a very long time about the need to finally get tougher when it comes to illegal migration. There's been lots of talk as well about foreign offenders, whether or not they should be deported from the UK and how quickly and how harshly they should have that happen to them. Now, I've got to say, in quite remarkable scenes, published probably at about 5 o'clock this afternoon, I would say, the government really has issued some strong graphics, which I'll play you in a second. But before I do, let's hear from our Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper.
Well, we need to prevent these dangerous boat crossings in the first place. That's why we are today in Parliament debating new counter-terror style powers to go after the criminal gangs. And we also need to clear the ridiculous backlog that we inherited from the Conservatives, so that also small boat arrivals who have no right to be in the UK can also be returned as part of the increase in returns and enforcement that this Labour government has been setting out. We have to make sure rules are respected and enforced.
Let's hear from Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp.
Now, the Rwanda scheme, as I've said already,
was due to start on the 24th of July with the first flight, following extensive legal challenge and legislation in this House. Very unwisely, the government chose never to start that scheme, which would have seen a deterrent effect, because it stands to reason if you try and cross illegally into a country like the UK and you're going to get removed to Rwanda, you're not going to bother trying to cross in the first place. We've seen that kind of scheme work elsewhere.
Now, while I'm talking to the two gents, I'm going to actually be playing you some of the footage that the Labour Party have released this afternoon of them actually clamping down, getting tougher. They say 19,000 foreign nationals have been removed from the country since Labour came to power. They're talking tough. They want their, successes, their targets, their achievements to be recognised. So if you're listening on the radio, I'll very briefly describe it before I throw over to Barry. But they've chartered a plane, they've got a load of guys on the bus, they've got some of them in what look like kind of handcuffs or some form of, restraint, and they're taking them onto the plane. We've never really seen any footage like this before. We didn't even really see it from the Tories, despite people, I think, wanting to see such imagery. What's behind all of this, Barry?
Well, look, the government said that it would deal with those people who were working illegally here in this country, that they would make those deportations, and it's right that they should follow up and uphold the law. You heard Chris Philp there saying that, the cancellation of the Rwanda scheme was a mistake. No, actually, the Rwanda scheme was not going to do the business.
How do you know?
Well, partly because Rwanda now has, as you know, is the border there is with terrorists having conflict.
Yeah, but you didn't know that at the time you scrapped it.
Well, no, but we did know that they were operating there. We didn't know that it had escalated to the point that it has. And we do know that Rwanda has human rights problems, which had been well charted in the past. So it wasn't a scheme that could have been properly enforced. It was a gimmick. What this shows is the Labour Party isn't about gimmicks, but I reserve it in this way, and that is, I don't think that it's the Labour Party's business to try and out-macho either the Conservatives or Reform on migration. And it's not about the small boats. The small boats are a tiny, tiny percentage of net migration into this country, as Rupert knows. What we need to do is we need to have sensible migration policies into this country that boost our economy, as many of the waves of migration that we've had into this country have done. Those people who are abusing our system, they need to be dealt with the full force of the law. But I have to say I'm quite surprised that, we're now getting flack from the Conservatives and Reform for doing what that previous government failed to do and what they promised to do and then failed.
Who's giving you flack, Barry?
Well, the Conservatives.
Michelle, you said Reform. But what I would say is, look, any deportations that should happen and do happen, I applaud. But this is a tiny percentage of the people who are living here. I mean, there are at least 1 million illegal migrants living here who should need to be deported. So this is just the start. So multiply this by 10 and then another 10 and then another 10. And, as some human rights lawyer said to me, it's going to take a plane leaving every hour. Well, as I said to him, that's a very good place to start. People come here illegally. They should not be allowed to stay. They should be detained and deported. Detained and deported. Quite straightforward. They've come here illegally. They haven't applied legally. There are people who have applied legally and have to wait their turn, and they have to be screened properly. And then the country can decide, are they going to add to the operation of our economy? Are they going to enhance our wealth? And I'm not anti-immigration, targeted minimal immigration, which brings high-skilled workers to the country, which increases the average GDP per capita. The problem is the GDP per capita is falling. And it's falling because we're bringing in migrants who don't have heavy-grade skills, and they're not contributing. They're actually costing the economy money. So we need to, first of all, detain and deport. That will stop the illegal migrants coming. And you may say it's not a big deal, Barry, but these people are being settled in hotels across the country. damaging the fabric of that local community. As we know, they've been hanging around outside schools. There are lots of reports of problems because culturally these are young men of fighting age. They are culturally different to us. They don't have the same views on women as we have. And I don't think they're good for the country. If they come here illegally, we have to detain and deport. That's a large reason, part of the reason why people voted for Brexit. They wanted a sovereign country with its own borders.
And obviously it's not done any good.
I applaud the fact there are some going.
Brexit hasn't achieved.
Do I believe that a Prime Minister who's a human rights lawyer, and Yvette Cooper, who is on record as basically, I've seen her with placards saying she welcomes immigrants, at the end of the day, do I think they're the right people to be dealing with this policy? No, I don't.
And yet there's a 73% increase in deportations over the Conservative government last year. Now,
Conservatives did it badly,
where I'd take issue with you is you said it's easy for people to come here legally. Actually, if you are...
I didn't say... I said they need to apply legally. I did not say it was easy to come legally. It shouldn't be easy to come legally.
Let me say...
But you and the Tories have let people in too easily, legally.
If you'd allow me to finish my point, if you are an asylum seeker, if you have a well-founded fear of persecution in your own country, international law is very clear, and we actually created
These are economic migrants. Most of them are economic migrants, not asylum seekers, Barry. You know that.
Well, you know very well that the courts actually, when they have taken them to tribunal, they found that 66% of those who went to the tribunal once they were in this country actually were legal asylum seekers.
Our woke judiciary's got a lot to do with that.
Well, you see, you would happily criticise the courts. I would not. I think the independence of the judiciary in this country is very important. And what they found is that the majority of asylum seekers are genuine and they have a well-founded fear of persecution in their country of origin. So what we need to do is to create safe and legal routes for the people who are genuine asylum seekers.
And they've travelled across other safe countries to get here, Barry.
But when we're talking about respecting the law and the courts finding that people are genuine asylum seekers, often that's because people will tell lies about their personal circumstances. So often we know that people will say, for example, I'm gay, and if you send me back to a Muslim country, I'll be persecuted.
Michelle,
Michelle,
you know very well that when people go in front of the courts for a criminal offence, for burglary or theft or whatever, they often tell lies. The court's job is to distinguish between the liar and the person who's telling the truth. And that
they're not going to follow them around to the bedroom, though, are they?
And that is what the judges have been able to do.
Did you see the chicken nugget story yesterday, Michelle? I mean, whether there's any truth in that, I don't know. But if there is, it's an absolute farce.
Yes, so this was a criminal, I think it was from Albania.
Albanian, yeah.
The courts had got involved about deporting him, and what they'd said was that this fella had a son, I think this son was about 10 years old.
Who didn't like the chicken nuggets.
And he had an adversity to eating chicken nuggets that were not British chicken nuggets or something like that. I mean, you literally couldn't even make this up. I mean...
That was the wool pulled over the judiciary's eyes there, I think.
I mean, what do we even say to stories like that? I find that's one of the reasons that people have such a fury towards the situation that goes on in this country. But let me ask you this. These scenes that we're seeing, they're not typical for the Labour Party. This is quite a change, shall we say, in terms of approach, showing this kind of footage. Is it because you're terrified of reform that you're trying to combat the rise of reform by doing things like this? Some people are calling it stunts.
Oh, you see, I don't think so. I think what we're doing is we're carrying out the law. And that's what any government should do. But I'll say this. I think the way in which it's being publicised, and I personally have an issue with it, because I don't want to be chasing reform or the Conservative Party down an increasingly right-wing agenda.
And do you think that's why they're doing this, to do that?
I want to make the case. I want to make the case for proper, legal, safe routes and manage migration into this country that benefits our economy. Every wave of migrant that's come here from the 1890s, whether it's the Jewish migrants from the pogroms in Eastern Europe, whether it was the Afro-Caribbean migrants that came in the 50s, whether it was the East African Asians who came in the 70s, they have all brought skills and economic growth to this country. They are the people who have built the NHS in this country, the public transport system.
Barry, if you think these people are going to benefit our economy, you're deluded.
That's
I'm
what
sorry.
that's what
you're
people,
deluded.
That's what
Fighting
people
age
said
young
in the
men. Where are the women?
1960s.
Where are the children?
That's what people.
Where are the women and children?
You know what?
If they're fleeing from countries, where are the women
Rupert,
and the children?
In the 1960s,
85% of these people are young men.
The men from the Caribbean came in the 1960s. They were the ones who came and who followed. The women and the children followed. But they were the ones who went on the buses, who were the conductors and the drivers of our public transport. They're the ones who were the orderlies in
Maybe you should have
hospitals.
a couple of these people in your house, Barry.
Do you know where I live, Rupert?
Well, maybe you should have them in your house.
Do you know where I live?
That's what I say to people who think this is right. It's not right. If you come here illegally,
right.
You should be detained and deported.
No, but hang on.
You should not come here.
We agree if you come here illegally. What we're talking about is having legal and managed migration. And where I disagree with what my party is doing at the moment is I am not chasing the right-wing semi-racist vote, right?
It's not.
Barry Gardiner, it's not semi-racist.
It's the common sense
your
vote, Barry.
borders to be controlled.
No,
is it?
Of course, and I agree with controlling our borders. I want them properly managed and legal routes for people to come here and build our economy.
So do you approve?
But that means that you would actually be able to have migration figures in this country, not an argument about how do we get migration down, but how do we get the right level of migration to improve our economy.
So is it fair on communities to have these men settled in hotels that are taken over with no notification of to the local community?
No, of course.
And they then hang around outside schools, they're culturally different to us. No, Barry, it's not right.
Because those people are in those hotels because they haven't been processed properly. They haven't. It's not been established whether they are legal or illegal migrants.
Because a lot of them throw their phone in the sea before they get here. So we give them a new phone. We give them absolutely everything. We're bonkers. We have gone bonkers.
Well, we disagree.
There you go. Have we gone bonkers or not? You can have the final say on that one after the break. The farmers have descended en masse again to Whitehall. You know why by now. It's all about the proposed inheritance tax on family farms. They want the Labour Party to change their mind. Do you think they should? See you in 2.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
Well, you know I like an auction.
Yes.
And I've bought some strange things at auction before you have as well, haven't you, Eamon?
Yeah, well, Ellie would throw this in the bin that you're coming up with now.
How about this? Admiral Lord Nelson's hair.
Nice.
Cut. I mean, is this a bit spooky? Cut as he lay dying during the Battle of Trafalgar, so someone's gone, oh, we'll just have a little bit of that there. In 1805, is on sale in Jersey, and it's a little cup. How much would you pay for the hair?
No, nothing. It would go in the bin, straight in the bin.
What? Even what? Nelson? That's very disrespectful to the British culture and heritage.
I think it's disrespectful that he lay there dying and someone thought, we'll take a quick stick.
Well, maybe they just had. Maybe they thought, you know, because there's obviously the famous painting, isn't there, of the Battle of Trafalgar? Maybe they thought we'll give him a quick haircut, and then they kept their £15,000, 15 grand.
Where's the hair come from? What part of the body?
His head, Eamon.
Well, it could be his underarm. I don't know. You know, it depends.
Hold on, let me have a little look.
You would bid
very curly. I think it's his. I think it's his head. It's his head. What?
You would bid more for his head than say his underarm.
Well, I think so. Yeah, I would hope so. Yeah.
Or anywhere else.
I would hope so. A little less whiffy there, the head hair. And there it is. And it's in a little pot.
No.
And the only way you can probably find out is if you DNA test it, I guess. It's definitely his.
Whoever pays for that is bonkers.
Well,
that's creepy.
I was seriously tempted to make a bid for a toupee, not for me, but as worn by John Wayne.
John Wayne's wig.
Yeah.
Why?
Wow.
Why?
Well, why I didn't get it was my wife said to me, that is not coming into the house.
No, she's right. She's right.
GB News, the People's Channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Hi there, Michelle Dewberry with you till 7 o'clock. Two MPs, Rupert Lowe and Barry Gardiner, remain alongside me. I've got to say, not a lot of support for your position on immigration. Barry, it might not surprise you. One of my viewers has said, can you just quickly ask him what number of, in terms of immigration and caps and all the rest of it, do you think is acceptable? Do you think it should be capped or not?
No, I think it should be the number that we need, and it'll go up and down as our economy goes up and down, as it changes. It would be silly to set a figure that is an absolute figure. You have to, if you need the skills, you need to increase the number coming in. If you don't, then you need to drop it.
Well, there you go. Did that just answer your question, the viewer that just asked it? Now let's talk farmers, shall we? Because again today, they have descended en masse to Whitehall. They, of course, want the Labour Party to do a U-turn, basically, on this inheritance tax policy. I mean, you describe yourself, to some extent, as a farmer. Am I right? Are you a proper farmer, or are you a rich guy that bought farmland to try and avoid tax?
Farming, Michelle, is my passion. I love farming.
Right.
And I love driving tractors, combines. I love it. And we have Fergal O'Brien training his horses on the farm as well. So we've diversified into that. But look, I was there today, and they're fantastic people, the farmers. They are the backbone of Britain, along with the small businesses. And Labour promised before the election, Steve Reid and various other people promised there would be no agricultural property reef if they were elected. And then that on more than one occasion.
He did? And it was in November and December.
Now they've put APR on farmland. They've also put taxes on businesses, small businesses. So gradually they're trying to break the backbone of productive Britain. And the issue with farming is that farming is an incredibly capital-intensive industry where people work very long hours, often alone, and the value of the land is meaningless in that it goes from generation to generation, but it means that we're well prepared to produce food. If you make people, and by the way, the machinery will go to the APR calculation, so whatever machinery you've got on your farm will contribute to that calculation. So there's a disincentive to invest in machinery because people will want to try and keep their land. And to break the backbone of British farming, which has served the communities so well, is terrorism. It's not any terrorism. They told a lie, a falsehood, Michelle.
Terrorism, lies?
Well, look, I met with the farmers the last time they came down, and
today?
Not today.
No, not today. I was in the chamber today, but I met with them the last time they came down, and one of them invited me to go to his farm, which I did. A few Fridays ago, I went down to Gloucestershire. I looked at his suckler cows. We went out on the land, and we had a fabulous day. I was there because we wanted to discuss and see what common ground that we could actually establish. And we'd started off from opposite positions. He got the SF, the Sustainable Farming Initiative, lead from the NFU, the National Farmers Union, down there with him, and also the regional officer. And we had a great discussion with his accountant, actually, around the lunch table. And I reckon that there's a deal that can be done very easily, but the NFU won't go for it. And the reason the NFU won't go for it is it would split their members into the very wealthy guys, the guys who are milking the tax breaks off the APR, and what you talk about, Rupert, as the family farmers. And I would say that you could get a deal around 5 million.
But Barry, you've been telling a pack of lies about how many farmers are going to be affected by this. You haven't. Nobody agrees with Labour's numbers on it. It's drivel. Well, and when I went to see the DEFRA minister, and he looked me in the eye after 20 minutes and told me that the public sector is very often more efficient than the private sector, I thought the farmers have got a tough job, and I'm encouraging them to keep turning the Bunsen up, because we cannot allow this to happen. It's terrorism, Barry. Labour is guilty of terrorising both the farms and the small businesses.
20-second response.
Well, Rupert is his normal, measured self. To call it terrorism, is absolute nonsense, and he knows it.
Well, what do you
Short-term
think to
terrorism.
that? There's a lot of support, I can tell you, when it comes to the farming community. Lose it at your peril is a message coming through from the inbox. But look, gents, that's all I've got time for. Thank you. Thank you to each of you at home. Have a good night, and I'll see you tomorrow night.
We'll see a cold snap, which will quickly develop into a warm front. Boxed Boiler Repairs, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, good evening. Here's your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. We're sticking with the cloudy and cold theme as we go through the next 24 hours or so, with some further rain, sleet and hill snow, particularly towards eastern parts. It's all because we have an easterly flow across the country due to an area of high pressure sitting over Scandinavia. We currently also have a system towards the southeast that's bringing some rain, sleet, even a bit of snow for a time being across southeastern parts, but that generally clears away, and then it's, yes, that easterly flow. So eastern areas most likely to see the damp weather. Some hill snow, particularly over the Pennines, the high ground of Scotland, quite likely. Temperatures dropping to low single figures for many places, the cloud cover stopping them falling too low, but where we get any clear skies towards the west, a touch of frost is quite likely. Looking at the details first thing tomorrow morning then, a grey start for